never really left Fruit Loops. Like
Fruit Loops were always your favorite one?
Always, in a rotation. But some of those cereals I haven't had in a long time. So I've been going back to find out if they really were good or if I just lusted after them so much as a kid because my mom said I couldn't have
just
them.
because you could have them every now and then. Yeah.
And I kind of feel like my parents' decision on which ones I could and couldn't have was kind of arbitrary. It's kind of like, nah, I don't like the cut of this box of cereals.
That was just a matter of getting control. That's all that is.
Exactly.
That was like Mr. T cereal. Mr. T cereal was awesome. I mean, really, all it was Corn Pops. It just shaped like T's.
Well, and here's
that was pretty much it. But it was cool because it was Mr. T.
Were you allowed to have that one?
Like once or twice, mainly because I loved Pee Wee Herman and it was in Big Adventures. So, but Mom, Pee Wee ate Mr. T cereal.
I hate that I politicize like the decisions on the cereal for my kids. Like I am adamantly opposed to any Disney cereal just because it's pure marketing, and I don't want my daughter to succumb to that. We already go there with like toys and stuff.
Disney cereals.
Frickin'
we
Frozen.
could do an entire show on this. I think
Frozen is just the first
cereals.
one that comes to mind, but there's more. There's many
what?
more.
I didn't realize that was a thing.
There's Little Mermaid. Dude. The next time you go down the cereal aisle, take a good long look at some of the pure marketing opportunity cereals that are out there. They're like the Happy Meal toy of cereals, where it's just like, oh, it's a popular movie. Let's make a cereal.
All right,
it's totally unnecessary.
We need you to give like a weekly update on which kind of cereal you've tried.
I think that we just found my new podcast.
There it is, right there. Cereal
Has
Talk.
nothing to do with digital trends.
It could also be a ASMR podcast where you eat the cereal.
Okay,
Matt's about to walk out of this
into
room.
the mic.
Going out the window.
And Matt's out.
With lots of slurping and crunching right up in the mic.
All right. Hello, everybody tuning in to Trends with Benefits. This is our weekly podcast where we gather a roundtable of people here from the office. We talk about the tech topics of the day and also cereal, apparently, which now I want to know what everybody's favorite cereal is. So we're broadcasting live on YouTube and Periscope. We're going to be talking about a bunch of stuff today, including something I'm very excited about, which Matt's going to fill us in. We've all tried it. It's the HTC Vive, so we're going to get to that in a minute. So let us know your questions, but let's see who we've got in the studio today. To my right, and let's hear what your favorite cereal was, too, as a kid.
Oh, man. I think if I'm... Cinnamon Toast Crunch. It's got to be.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch?
The milk is so good after that. It's got that cinnamon swirl flavor to it. You drink, because you get to drink the milk afterwards, and it's its own treat.
Yeah, all right. I wasn't a big fan of the cinnamon ones. That didn't do it for me. No, I was, But that's good. That's good. Cinnamon. Tim Nix.
I am a big fan of the Reese Cup cereal.
Okay, and who are you?
How did you get in here?
I am Matt, and I am the computing editor.
Excellent. So you were the Reese's cereal? Is that what that was
Reese's
good.
cereal?
Reese's, not the Reese's. The Reese's cereal. That was a good one. I did not get to have that one. Like, my parents were pretty liberal with giving us the good cereals.
Well, it's pure. It's pure like candy. Like, there's not I don't understand why any parent would let their kid have it.
Was it a peanut butter cup cereal? Because now they have the Reese's
My grandparents
Puffs.
did.
Now they have the Reese's Puffs.
No, it's a Reese's Puff.
Okay, yeah, they still have that.
It's really good,
and my kids love it. And
I feel like you could just like make some really good like Rice Krispie treat style like things.
You totally could. That's a great idea.
Those would be so sweet.
Not bad.
The wheels are turning now.
Yes. All right, and
Caleb Denison, also known as Michael Knight, and I would have to say I was a big fan of the fruit cereals, and I would say Fruit Loops, except for the cut your mouth factor. So probably Trix. Probably Trix. I'm going to think about that. Probably change my answer before the end of the podcast.
Okay, but right now it's Trix.
Right now, I would say it was Trix until I smelled them festering on my subwoofer, and that kind of ruined it for me. Really,
Trix.
That'll be forever in your mind now. Whenever
that'll
you
just
Trix.
ruin it.
Trix.
Anything festering under subwoofer.
There's an olfactory association going right now that I just can't shake.
Trix
so
in
it used to be
milk
Trix.
Okay, yeah, not anymore though. That's
I think Honey Bunches of Oats with strawberries might be my new favorite right now.
I do not even remember that one.
No, it's a thing right now.
That's a new thing? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not on top of the cereal
That's
world.
okay. That's all right. You're forgiven.
That's why you're here. All right. Let's.
Oh, is that why?
Oh, and I'm Greg Nibler. I would say mine as a kid, it was probably, this is going to sound bad, Golden Grams. I liked Golden Grams. Yeah.
I hated
love
Golden
Golden
Grams.
Grams.
Golden Grams aren't bad.
I felt like they set me up for like this. I expected a lot, and I was really disappointed. I hated.
Why
Golden
did you
Grams.
expect, like, what is the
Well,
setup?
first of all,
Yeah.
there's a subset of cereals that are prone to premature sogginess, and Golden Grams is not as bad as Life. Any of Life is terrible. Life is almost worthless.
Is life terrible?
I prefer.
It's worthless.
I prefer.
Heard it here first. Life is terrible. Life is worthless.
Like I like Life dry, but don't put milk on it because it's instantly ruined. But Golden
Okay.
Grams was one of those cereals that was known to get super soggy super fast.
All right, we have talked so much about cereal already. We do need a whole show just dedicated
Nick's
to this.
ready to dissect the science behind the whole situation, which
Let me
I
explain
love.
why you're wrong. All right, well, let's get to the actual big story of the day. So we've got several things we're going to talk about. And like I said, put your questions there into Periscope or YouTube, or send us an email if you're listening to this afterwards, podcast@digitaltrends.com. But we here at Digital Trends have something on hand that is amazing that came in the mail just today, just this morning.
Just this morning.
We weren't even sure if it was going to be here in time for the podcast, I know.
Yeah, because it was shipping end of day delivery, so we were like, I don't know.
It usually always ends up being end of day if that's what they say, but we got lucky.
We're talking about this, right?
We're talking about the Knight Rider lunchbox that's on the table.
Just making sure we're on the same
We do
page.
need to address that too. Now, not only the Knight Rider lunchbox is sitting on our table, but we also got an HTC Vive here at Digital Trends, and I believe, well, I've tried it out. I don't know, Nick, Caleb, did you guys try it out?
We've
yet?
all tried it out.
What's an
Yeah.
HTC Vive, Greg?
What is this? Well, Matt, actually, why don't you let us know what is an HTC Vive?
HTC Vive is a virtual reality headset. If you've been paying any attention to virtual reality, you probably have heard of it before. But in case you haven't, what really sets it apart from everything else is the fact that it's built to be used while you're standing up and you move about a room.
And if you're watching via YouTube or Periscope, there's actually a video right now of me trying it out earlier, so you can kind of
There you
see
go.
what that looks like. And I've only tried the Gear VR before, but that was something that
much
was
more limited.
much more limited. And this is really, really something that's next level. Like, we've heard about it, and it is hard to explain until you try it.
Is it the only
It's
one
revolutionary.
that uses sensors? Like,
Well, no.
in the room?
The technically the Rift, I believe, has sensors, but and yeah, by that you mean like sensors that
In-room
are mounted in the
sensors.
room.
Yeah, yeah.
I believe the Rift has some of those as well, but
Okay.
those help with the head tracking. But the Vive is the only one where you can stand up and walk around, and that's part of the virtual experience.
I didn't know that it was going to have that huge of an impact on the experience until I
yeah,
just tried it for the
it's
first time
massive.
like
Yeah.
15 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And I was like,
It is massive.
now I get it. Like, I thought that basketball thing you showed us with the Gear VR a couple weeks ago was cool, but my experience just playing like putt-putt in a mini golf course on the Vive was just, it was amazing. It was so much fun. And I know that's nothing compared to some of the other like experiences that you could have.
Well, I mean, the HTC Vive, and like I said, this is the first time I've tried it too. Going from the Gear VR, which I thought was great. I mean, it's such a difference. It's like going from Atari to a PlayStation.
Yeah.
That's
it really is.
the biggest difference that I felt. And there's video there, like I said, that's playing. I will say this really quick before we get into the more specs of it. Watch out when you're in a room full of people because they can really mess with you.
Oh, and they
'Cause
will.
You can't hear anything. You have these headphones on, and that's all you can see. You can also it also has remotes, but it makes you very vulnerable to get pegged with ping pong balls and Nerf guns. So watch out for that.
I love that the remotes just sort of float in the VR in the room. When you're not holding them, they're just kind of floating out there. Or in my case, like the golf club was just kind of floating in midair, and I just needed to go and grab
you
it.
can if you put down your controllers for some reason, you still know where they are.
Yeah.
It's really intuitive.
All this stuff. I mean, I've been reading about this for a long time, and I know our readers and other people they've been reading about this stuff and all these accounts, and I think that everybody does their best to try and describe what the experience is like.
Right.
But this is definitely a must. You must try it to really understand how cool it is, and it is that cool.
Yeah, you can read about it. You can watch the videos of somebody, in-game footage of somebody doing it, and it does not encompass the experience at all.
Well, and I think that's one of the things to really get more excitement for it is they're going to have to set up showrooms for this once it comes out onto the market, which I believe is in April. The pre-orders come out in April for the public.
You can pre-order the Vive now.
Okay, and it starts
And
shipping.
it starts shipping on, I believe, April 5th.
Okay. Where they'll actually start getting them.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any back order on it yet. The last time I checked, there wasn't. But that was like a week ago. So
I mean, it is kind of an investment because you need to have a machine to run.
It's
with
really
it.
expensive.
It's attached to that.
it's $800. I don't think
$800, and then the computer's on top of that.
Yeah, then you need a computer that can.
How much
Okay.
money do you probably need to spend on a computer, pre-built or custom built, to run the Vive?
Pre-built, you're looking at probably around $1,200. And you might be able to get a little bit less than that because there's some companies running bundle deals and stuff like that. Although most of those deals right now are on Rift.
So what's is it processing? Is it like the CPU or the GPU that's working overtime? Or?
You need a pretty good CPU. But the thing that really, I think, kicks the price up is the graphics card.
Yeah.
You need a graphics card. They recommend a GTX 970 or AMD equivalent, and those, I think, run just north of $300.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, you can figure if you're talking about like a $1,000 PC, then that would be like a $700 PC without the graphics card.
Yeah.
So yeah, it
I
makes
mean,
it a lot more expensive.
I feel like you're looking at about $2,000 all in if you don't
Yeah,
have
about
the-
$2,000 all in if you do not have a computer already that you can upgrade.
Right,
Okay.
and that's the thing. I was just gonna say, like, if you have a cool computer and you're willing to plop down the $300 to get that, 970 video card.
Yeah. The processor requirement's not too crazy. It's like a Core i5 4000 series quad core desktop processor, and that's a few years old at this point. And probably people who are fairly up on technology and who have a desktop. Probably already have something like that already. So
Okay.
it's really just a question of whether or not you can slam a video card in there.
But and maybe I just walked in at the wrong time, but it was kind of like crashing and being a pain in the ass.
Actually,
earlier. So I mean, how stable is it?
Actually, I would say that's something I definitely wanted to comment on. Surprisingly, the entire setup process was really easy.
Oh, cool.
And you came in like at a point where we just updated the firmware on the controllers, and I don't know what was going on, but we just updated the firmware, and we ended up having to reboot the whole system after we did that to make it work right again. But other than that, like, the setup process was extremely intuitive. Probably took 15 minutes, except for the fact that it has these lighthouse stations that track your movement in the room. And you got to figure out where to mount those. If you have to wall mount those, then that can be a pain.
What did we end up doing with it?
We ended up putting them on tripods.
Okay.
Tripods on tables is what we ended up going with because
Yeah, because they're like a good 9 or 10 feet in the air, aren't they?
they're not. They need to be 6.5 feet up
Oh, okay.
at minimum.
That's not too bad.
Not too bad.
But that is one thing. I mean, not only it is costly to get involved in it, to get into it, but you also have to have a room pretty much dedicated to it, wouldn't you?
Kind of.
I mean,
like
unless you want to move around a computer everywhere.
You would need. It would have to be in like your office or something. Like, you'd have to be a room where you have a space in the middle that's like fairly free.
Like, how much space do you need?
I think I mean, technically you can use the Vive as a standing experience, but that's kind of missing the point. I think that the smallest they recommend for walking is around 6x6.
Okay.
And then 6 by 6 feet. And then they expand it up to about 15. I think it's 16 by 16 feet is the maximum that they quote as being supported.
Okay.
So it's a pretty big gap there between.
At 6x6 though, I don't think that's probably about the most I can muster in my apartment. And I don't think I'd even bother at that point because as soon as you bump into something, the illusion is ruined. Like you're in the game and you have this illusion of freedom all around you, and then as soon as you just kind of reach the edge of that, it just bumps you right out of whatever you were doing, playing mini golf or throwing staplers around an office.
Well, that's what
and then you're like,
chaperone
I'm
was
still
for.
standing in my house. I just bumped into my chair or
Yeah.
whatever. I think you definitely need like a pretty sizable space to actually appreciate to get lost in it, really.
Mm-hmm.
But you can get lost in it for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, I was in there and I say in there because it really is like going into a new place.
Because
but
you've got the headphones on too. That just completely.
I didn't
mean, if
even
you
have the headphones on. I had people around me, and they were screwing with me, blowing in
Yeah.
my face and stuff like that. And like, I still really felt like in that zone. In fact, I can imagine this becoming a problem for people. Like, I can
yeah.
imagine hardcore
Getting addicted.
enthusiasts
I can definitely-
getting
Yeah.
addicted and then having their real life fall apart. Like, you we've all made jokes about the gamers that live in their mom's basement
Right.
and never come out, and they have no life. And I can definitely see something similar going on with VR. Like,
Well-
just getting sucked in.
Oh yeah. Wait till World of Warcraft comes to
Oh,
the
God.
Well, exactly. Like,
Oh,
people were getting addicted to EverQuest like at the turn of the century on like a 21-inch monitor.
Yeah.
With these graphics that were like so basic and rudimentary.
Yeah.
And now we have this that you can put on and you can actually like feel like you're in the world.
It's better than real life. Nobody,
And
nobody
like
makes fun of me.
that like. Yeah, people are definitely gonna get addicted especially once we start seeing big games come
Yeah,
out.
like
'Cause right now
immersive
they're
worlds that you
right
can
now
just
they're kind of like
explore.
smaller games, or like there's a lot of demos. There's a few smaller games, right? Like the mini golf.
Right.
Like mini golf is fun, but you're probably not gonna lose your life to mini golf.
No, definitely
Eventually
not.
you'll do
Yeah.
all the mini golf holes, and that'll be it. And there's not like any sort of World of Warcraft equivalent yet.
Not
but,
yet. But I mean, it is. And I've said holodeck so many times before on this show because that's what I want. That's what I want. I want my
It's the
holodeck.
closest thing to the holodeck
It is,
that
yeah.
I've ever experienced.
I mean, and for people getting addicted to it, wait till they introduce social aspects where you can have your own avatar,
Oh, yeah.
interacting with someone else, because they're going to have some kind of second city type of thing that'll go on with it, where you're involved with that. I mean, it's a whole new world. I mean,
I would play checkers with somebody in virtual
Right.
reality.
Yeah.
Well, that'd be
the
awesome.
novelty of that
Yeah.
at first would be awesome enough
I'm
for
playing
me.
with some guy
Yeah.
from Brazil right now.
Yeah,
We're
That,
playing
that
checkers.
actually
you know?
that reminds me, one of the I thought more interesting game announcements from GDC was it's from Ubisoft and some developer working under them, and it's called it's something werewolves, but basically the idea is you're around like a fire in a village with like 8 people, and it's sort of a spin on a classic party game where you have to figure out who is the bad guy.
Oh, nice.
In
So
this
it's like
case, the
Clue,
werewolf.
kinda?
And you're asking each other questions. Everyone has like a particular power they can do to try and suss out like what the others are doing. And everyone has headsets on. They're multiplayer. They might be in different locations, but it's tracking their heads. It's tracking their hands, their hand gestures, and then you can like put in certain pre-programmed expressions for your character. And it's all about just being in this group of people and trying to figure out who the bad guy is. And that sounds like, a really cool experience. You can do this, over the internet.
with other people.
With people or with total
Yeah.
strangers. And
This is in VR or
yeah, it's in VR.
It's in VR. Okay. Yeah.
Man, I mean, I'm seriously thinking Christmas, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I get myself one of these things. Like I haven't been so excited for a piece of tech in a really long time.
But
I
agree.
think it's just amazing. So yeah.
Do you think there's any chance the price will go down or?
By
As it-
Christmas,
yeah.
you might see some bundle deals or something. I don't know.
No, I mean I know we're getting into VR, but I mean this is such a cool thing. Like, how do you think this will compare to when does Oculus come out? Does that?
Oculus is really, it's like March 28th is when the first ones ship.
Okay, so it'll be right about the same time.
Yeah, but they have like a big pre-order list now. So
Yeah.
if you order one now, you're not getting it until like July.
Right.
Okay. And now, how do you think this will compare to the Oculus?
Well, I think
Like, if someone were going to buy one for the first time, buy a set of,
the Oculus is right now the Oculus is a sitting experience,
Okay.
right? So you're going to be like in games where you're in a cockpit of something, and that's
Okay.
cool. Like that works really well. But the problem that the Oculus has as a sitting experience is that whenever you have something where you move a lot, you're going to get disorientation. It's like being on a plane with the windows all closed, and if you're prone to being motion sick, that's going to make you feel pretty queasy because things are moving, you have no control over it.
Right.
And
Yeah, when you don't have a fixed point
Yeah,
to
it's
log on to, I mean, that's what a
same
lot of people
thing.
do to keep from getting seasick. If you're on a ferry or something like that, is
Look at the
pick a point
horizon.
on the horizon and
Right.
focus on that, and that helps you like defeat what your inner ear is telling you. But you don't really have that.
in the Rift. And,
Yeah.
they're trying to find ways that they get around it, but they're all kind of contrived. Like, there's this one demo, I believe it's called Bullet Train, which Rift was showing at their last developers conference. And it's like a shooter, but if you were like running around with your controller, and trying to shoot things, you get really disoriented because you're not actually moving. So they're like, well, how do we get around this? We make these points where you teleport to them.
Okay.
You teleport around the level,
that.
and then you stand there and you shoot people. And okay, that's a way to get around it, but it's also obviously really limiting. And kind of like, it feels kind of weird. It's like, I don't walk, I just teleport there? Like, that's very strange.
I mean, see, based on everything you just told me, you just solidified my decision that like the HTC Vive is the way I want to go.
I mean, we're gonna get a Rift in for review too, and I'd really like to check that out.
And Rift
in
is
depth,
probably
but-
less expensive to get into, I would imagine.
well, kind of. It's
Or not.
$600 for the Rift, but here's the thing: the Rift doesn't come with the motion controllers, right?
Okay.
So the Vive comes with the motion controllers. Now the Rift's going to get those, but they're going to come later in the year, and they're probably going to be around $100 to $200. So, you're probably not really saving much money by getting the Rift if that's the kind of experience
Well,
you
and
want.
I hate, I know this is like turning into the VR episode, but
Well, it's
PlayStation
big
just
news,
announced the
yeah.
PlayStation VR, which is significantly less expensive. And if you already own a PS4, you're halfway there.
Right.
If you have to buy one, of course, it adds up to about $850. But it uses cameras, right, and motion controllers. So I'm imagining that it might offer an experience kind of like the Vive.
Probably not.
No, even with the camera
It's a
involvement.
seated,
and
that's
stuff?
going to be a seated experience.
So it'll be
Really?
more like a Rift.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, then-
Still a nice, cheaper alternative to the Rift, though. If you don't, especially if you don't have a gaming PC.
And
Yeah.
if gaming is really what you want to do with VR, and I mean that's obviously a huge gaming platform, then I imagine the PlayStation VR would be super cool as well. But like if I'm going to invest in VR and spend a bunch of money, I'm thinking the Vive, man. I mean, can you imagine like having a party at your house and being the first time anybody ever experienced? Like you'd be legendary, man.
I did that with the Gear VR when I got that.
Yeah.
I had a bunch of people over, and so everybody sat down and tried it. I mean, that's nothing compared, which is weird to say now because I've always thought that's the best thing I've ever played. And now that I've tried HTC, it's taking the shine off my Gear VR.
Yeah.
Now it's not so,
Sorry,
it's
man.
not so cool anymore.
Wah,
But-
wah, wah.
But no, yeah, it is one of those things. When you try it for the first time, it's really eye opening, and that's back to my point. They're going to have to set up some kind of showrooms, I think, if they really want to push this forward. Because until you try it, I mean, you can see all the reviews, we can talk about it, you can understand how great it is and get an idea of it. But until you try it, I think that's gonna be prohibitive for some people to get in and spend the money on it.
Yeah.
But then once they try it, to be like, okay, yep, here's
Here's
my card.
It sells itself, yeah.
Yeah.
After you try it, it's visceral. You're there. You come out. You take it off, and you go, I need this.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm at the
Here's
take
my
my
card.
money
Yeah.
position right now. For
Yeah.
sure.
Well, we had someone in there never tried VR before. Was playing the shooter game and like she almost fell over because she was like there were these robots coming at her and she was shooting at them and she like
Tried to
dodged
dodge
to dodge the bullets and shoot back at them and like
How many
almost fell over on her
VR injuries are going to happen because of that
Probably
reason?
quite a few.
Yeah, I imagine.
Like the demo I tried, the floor dropped out from under me and I started stumbling
Yeah.
backwards.
Yeah.
You get this vertigo
Yeah.
while standing on solid concrete.
Right. It's like I know I'm in a cafeteria with people all around me, but I feel like I'm going to fall down that. That's not good. All right. Well, there's so many different. If you have some questions, please go ahead and put those in there. I apologize if I've missed some of those. We got involved in talking with that. You can drop those into the chat. We'll come back and hit up some of those. But let's move on to something else because we do have a couple more things to talk to. I just realized how long we've been talking about VR, but it's so cool. Apple has a bunch of announcements that are going to be coming out on Monday. Monday, March 21st is going to be their big event, and I believe it's something along the lines of we're going to loop you in.
Yes, let us loop you in.
Let us loop you in. What are your thoughts on what that could mean? Do you guys have any kind of theories on that? I see some of the theories that have come out saying it has to do probably with some Apple Watch rumors that are going to come up, and some new things that are going to happen with that. Were they going to?
If it is something Apple Watch related, that's really just sad. Like
think
that's the
so?
best. Let us loop you in. I mean, it's a watch. It kind of looks
I
like
think
a
it
loop.
almost certainly is.
Who are the
Apple,
ad
so.
wizards that came up with that?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't. You know what? To be honest with you, I don't care. I think the loop you in thing, whatever that's referencing, is probably one of the less interesting things that are going to end up coming out of that. The announcements.
What do you
I
think
could
are the
be
more
wrong.
interesting things?
Well,
that come out
I
of the
mean,
announcements?
I honestly think that if Apple kills the headphone jack, that's going to be
And that's something that's pretty big. That
I
it's
keep
with the
trying to
new-
tell myself it's not that big of a deal, in the world of wireless headphones and stuff like that. But no, I really do think it's a big deal. I think people will definitely be talking about it more than they talk about, oh, they made a smaller iPhone, or they made a smaller iPad, or they came up with some new bands for a watch. I mean, if there is an Apple Watch 2, a second iteration, and the watch does a whole bunch of like really cool new stuff, and it comes at a cheaper price point, that's cool. I'm into that. Yay. But I think killing the headphone jack, something that we've been using for decades, like that's kind of a ballsy move.
And that is, just so everybody knows too, who's watching or listening, that's one of the rumors, is that the new iPhone 7 is going to get rid of the headphone jack altogether. They'll have the Lightning connection, which I'm not an iPhone guy, so that's their like mini USB.
Yeah, I mean, you
basically.
charge your phone with the
Okay.
Lightning connector. It's how you sync it to your computer if you do that kind of thing. It's the wired interface for your phone.
Okay.
And it's a digital input output. Unlike the previous iPhones with a 30-pin connector where there was some analog connections there, this is a completely digital interface, right? And so, yeah, if they ditch the headphone jack, advantages for Apple are there's more room inside the case of the phone because they don't have to put a physical jack, they don't have to put a headphone amplifier circuit, and they don't have to have what's called a digital analog converter, which turns your digital music into actual electrical impulses that make sound, right? So they reclaim some space, and we've seen what Apple does with minute amounts of space. They can work miracles with that. So that could be the motivating factor, possibly, for them actually ditching the headphone jack. And they could also cite being very forward-thinking, I guess, because Bluetooth headphones are getting really popular, and they're more convenient than having a wired headphone, right? But when you do ditch the headphone jack, I mean, what happens with all the wired headphones you own? Or if you're that, do you have to go buy a new wireless set of headphones? No, they have to have a solution for that, right?
They get to sell you a $200 adapter.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. And that's the thing is, since the output of an iPhone is digital, you're going to have something that you can plug into the Lightning jack that will convert the digital signal to analog and amplify it so that it works on your headphones, right? And that's going to require power. So not only is it another piece to put in between your phone and your headphones, but it's going to use the iPhone's battery to work, and that's going to drain the battery a little bit more. But the plus side of this is that it could really increase the audio quality of what you're listening to, like by a lot. I'm assuming you're getting some amazing questions right now.
Oh no, there's a couple of people with some questions. We'll get into those.
Yeah, I bet. Anyway, so anyway, yeah, I think it's gonna be a big deal, like how they dance around it, how they spin it. Put their little Apple spin on why they do it. I'm really interested to hear about what that is. And then also, are they going to give us a wireless ear pod? Are they going to give us something that, like, we've recently reviewed some truly wireless, like stick them in your ear. That's all it is, directly in your ears. Are we going to get something like that? Are they going to do something like the little halo around your neck, a loop? Perhaps around your neck,
loop you in
with headphones going in. Are they going to have a new headphone? Look, Apple's never given a crap about the audio quality of their iPhone in the past, but now they own Beats, and now they have skin in the game. So, there's an argument to be made for the fact that Apple is changing their tactic because they see an opportunity.
I don't think they can do it with just offering Lightning-based headphones as a replacement for the normal headphone jack that they've like. No one cares that much about. Most Apple customers don't care enough about audio quality for that to work. Right. But if they do the ear pods that are wireless, that are similar to what we've seen, that people will give a shit about.
Yeah, the question
people will completely forgive them for getting rid of the jack, because the prospect of getting rid of the jack and replacing it with not another jack, but nothing, you just put stuff in your ears and don't worry about it anymore, that could work.
But I have a hard time believing that Apple would include those for free. Like, what they include now is like the most basic, crappiest, cheapest pair. I mean, they practically make themselves these ear pods that they put in with the phone. And they're throwaway, So you can't move from that to something that actually takes money and resources to develop and then just include them with the phone. Like that's going to be an add-on purchase. So what's going to happen?
They'll put the Beats name on it and sell those for $350.
Yeah, but what comes with the phone? Do they change course and become like so many other phone manufacturers that don't include headphones with the phone purchase? Is that because that kind of been a tenet of theirs? Ever since they started with the iPhone, you got the earbuds or the earpods. I don't know.
Give me some cheap lightning-based earpods.
But there's nothing cheap about lightning-based earpods because you've
have to
got to
have
have the
the
DAC and the
thing.
headphone amp. There's electronics there. There's no cheap way to do this.
But so far, that is the biggest rumor that's going to happen. There's nothing else really that, other than it's going to be maybe a smaller iPhone. That was one of the things they're talking about.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if they're doing the headphone jack thing, like that would have to be on the smaller iPhone, right? They're not just going to come out with
No,
an iPhone.
I think it's
No,
for the
they're
iPhone 7.
talking about it for the iPhone 7.
Well, why would
Yeah.
they announce that tomorrow, though?
Not
On
tomorrow,
Monday.
but Monday.
Or on
But
Monday.
I mean, when they announce the iPhone 7 and there's no headphone jack on it, it announces itself. Like they have
Yeah.
to address that. They can't just like take it away and not say something about it. And all these rumors are based on leaked photos of the iPhone itself, and also cases being made for the iPhone, which have no space for a headphone jack, the way this case does, for instance. So there you go.
There we go. Well, all that's going to be on Monday, March 21st, where we will find out what's happening. And Digital Trends is going to have all the coverage on here. So we will get to the bottom of that. All right, there's one last story, because I know we've talked about these two things because they're the main stories that are happening right now. There's one last one I want to get to, and I want to propose this question to see what you guys think about this guy, whether you like him or not, because I think it's going to be polarizing.
David Hasselhoff?
Not David Hasselhoff, although we can talk about the Hoff. Don't hassle the Hoff.
We'll come back to him.
We'll come back to the Hoff before we leave. No, it has to do with this guy that got busted, and I believe it was in Chicago. He was arrested. This was over the last week. Supposedly he's been doing this for at least a year. It's been cited where people have been riding mass transit, and every now and then, like masses of people in the same car, all of a sudden their phones will stop working. And they can't figure it out. And they don't know what's going on. Well, it's been speculated that there's a guy with a jammer that's walking around, and he just flips it on in his pocket and shuts everybody down. And finally, they got him. There was a dude, there was an undercover cop who went on this one train, and they thought they knew who it was by trying to speculate it. And sure enough, he sat down next to him, the undercover cop did, and started making a phone call. And he watched the guy reach into his pocket and flip a switch on some kind of thing, and instantly everybody's phones dropped down. It turns out this guy's just been doing this all this time because he's getting sick of people on phone conversations on his ride in. He wants some quiet. I can relate to that because I took the bus over the last weekend, and there was some dude behind me where he had his phone out and on speakerphone having a conversation with this girl. And they're talking about somebody else. And at the end of the call, it sounds like I'm making this up, they both made kissing sounds to each other, talking about how much they loved each other. And I was like, is this guy just trolling
on
everyone?
speakerphone on a
On
public bus.
speakerphone. So I could hear them being, I love you. I love you. I'm like, oh, if only I had this guy's jammer at that point. I think I applaud this guy. Even though he's getting arrested, he's going to get a big
I'm
fine.
with you. I'm with you. I think it's awesome. And I think I love that he must have gotten so much enjoyment out of this. I mean, it must have just like liberated his commute back and forth. He just probably felt so free and so satisfied with himself, just being able to flip a switch and completely shut down everybody's rude, idiotic, cell phone mayhem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all for it. But the guy got arrested. Why?
Well,
why arrest this
It's
dude?
actually a pretty big
It's a pretty big deal. That's a really big deal.
Because-
you'll probably get like a book or two.
Yeah.
thrown at him.
Oh, yeah. There was one guy who ended up getting like a $48,000 fine who tried this same thing.
Yeah.
And the reason is the feds take it so seriously because they're worried if in an emergency, it stops people's abilities.
I mean, we're all thinking about this in terms of like, oh, somebody's on the phone making kissy noises, or they're like playing words with friends, or doing like worthless shit that we're all like, people should pull their heads out of their phones anyway.
Yeah.
But there's actually some really legitimate concerns. Like people could be using phones for things that are really important that are suddenly their network is crippled and they're trying to call 911.
It's
and that
true.
guy's like, peace and quiet.
It's also one of those things where the government
Now he's an a-hole.
regulates that, and they don't want individual people messing with what they do. I mean, like the government has control of how our
yeah.
The FCC is very guarded
and
with what we do.
if you have guys like with jammers or going around jamming certain frequencies, that totally messes with that control. It's like people starting up their own like sheriff departments or something. It's not
pop-up sheriff.
It's not, the government said like we're doing this and you can't. And if you do, then they take that pretty seriously.
Then they need to do something about the people making kissy sounds on the bus. That's what I want the presidential.
Well, what you need to do is that's when you need to get your camera phone out and put it on YouTube.
Yeah. Hey man, just watch.
We'll shame them into submission.
There it is, the shaming.
Well, I want to know where dude got this cell phone jammer. Did he like order it off the deep web or really?
I don't think that
you can get them
jammers
online.
Illegal? I don't know if the actual jammers are.
It's
illegal.
a violation of federal law to use one.
I think you're not allowed to use them, but I don't know if actually like
if you can own it or not. I'm sure. I mean, you can get anything online.
That's like saying that the ham radio frequencies are off limits to all those who have a license. Like, I have a pair of walkie-talkies I bought at frickin' Fred Meyer or whatever, and it says you're supposed to have a license to communicate on channels 37 to 50. I don't give a crap of what you're like. Like, I respect the FCC's rules to a certain point, and then after that, it's just ridiculous.
Rebel.
Well, when Caleb's
Pirate radio over here.
Caleb the rebel.
Well, know why?
Do not mess with ham radio operators. Those guys are deadly serious.
Yeah.
All right, we've been talking for a while. I know we've got to wrap this up. We did reference though the Knight Rider lunchbox. I feel like we gotta tie that in. Caleb brought in some show and tell, and unfortunately, this is just going to be if you're watching live or watching the video at digitaltrends.com/podcast. Caleb, please explain why you have a children's lunchbox.
Well, I mean, it's so nostalgic. My love for the metallic lunchbox, and I'm not the only guy out there who's like into this stuff, by the way. And I wouldn't say I'm even into it. It fascinates me. So I found my childhood lunchbox, my fall guy. That's Lee Majors, also known as the Bionic Man lunchbox. A long time ago at some shop out by the beach, right? And I just kind of got into it. I was like, man, this brings back so memories. Turns out my mom was out on the East Coast shopping. She found the Knight Rider lunchbox. And so it's the original, straight out of the 80s. Got Hasselhoff and Devon and the Knight 2000 car kit on there. And it even came with the powder blue for some reason.
Awesome.
Thermos inside.
Yeah.
When you get one of these with the thermos, that's like, that's the big deal. And yeah,
it's actually being used.
And it's being used. I've got some soup
Progresso
and some Progresso soup and some Quaker instant oatmeal. I feel like we should probably
That did
get
not come with the
endorsed here.
lunchbox?
No, that did
Okay,
not
that
come
was-
with the
all right.
lunchbox. The previous owner was Joseph Markham, I believe. So Joseph, if you're out there listening, thanks for the lunchbox. But no, the reason I brought this in, besides it being hilarious and kind of cool, is because there is a website. If you go out there and do a Google search, I'm pretty sure you can find it. There is this very sort of mysterious, nebulous website out there that says something about Knight Rider coming in 2016. So something is going on.
Like with Hasselhoff involved?
Yeah, it looks that way. So they already brought Knight Rider back,
there's a
and it was
teaser
a
with
massive
him, right?
flop. Yeah, it's a teaser, but there's no. I mean, it's just a big black background with some Hoff on it, and like there's no really nowhere to scroll. Maybe you can sign up for an
I
email
thought there was
list?
a video.
No,
I thought Dubs was watching a video.
It's all
that
a
had
mystery.
Watching a video?
Some Hoff in it. Some
I'm gonna have to
aging
go back.
Hoff.
But I mean, it was
But that's
just one
why-
of those. I was walking by Ryan's desk, and he had this Knight Rider thing. I was like, "What the heck are you doing?" It's like, how did I not even know about this? So yeah, Knight Rider's coming back in some kind of way, somehow, at some point, and that's what inspired me to bring in this lunchbox. I mean, my mom gave it to me for Christmas. I figured I might as well get some use out of it.
It is awesome. It is fantastic.
So I'm
And
going
congratulations.
after Airwolf next, and then probably A-Team is going to need to be in there.
Definitely.
I was never a really big fan of Dukes of Hazzard, but I feel like, if you're collecting
It's in the
these things,
genre.
you should probably have one of those.
You got to get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we started with cereal. Let's end with lunchboxes. Matt, what was your favorite lunchbox from when you were a kid, or one you wish you would have had?
Probably that one.
The Knight Rider one. I know.
Yeah,
that's pretty
Knight
hard to
Rider
deny.
Knight Rider
That's
was
pretty
a
badass. Michael.
before my time as far as like catching it when it was like really the height of its popularity. But I saw it and I was like, yeah, I would like a car that
It's pretty
talks
cool.
to me and takes me around. It's really awesome. That would be great.
Nick?
I'm gonna have to say the same. Unfortunately, it was also in reruns by the time I got to Knight Rider.
I mean, it's hard to
but
beat that. Like,
yeah,
It really is.
that car and it talks to you and
Yeah.
the adventures that they go on, like that speaks to you when you're 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true. All right, that
What
one
about
is
you, Greg?
that's pretty amazing. I probably though my favorite one from when I was a kid was my Pee-wee's Playhouse one.
Are you serious?
It was awesome. It was cool. That one that I owned.
Pee-wee's
Now I
Playhouse
didn't
was a
have
big
the
deal.
Knight Rider one.
Right.
Had I had the option, that's badass.
yeah.
It was Pee-wee's Playhouse, and also I'm just saying that because the movie's coming out tomorrow.
Yep.
So there it is. That's where I'm leaving it. All right. Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in today. This has been awesome. Go ahead and send us an email, podcast@digitaltrends.com, and go to the website, digitaltrends.com/podcast. And of course, everything else that's on there. You can watch the videos of the Vive and the full reviews of everything we've talked about, updates on the Apple events and what's going to happen there. Will be on the site. So follow all of those things, and we will be back next week with another episode.